Hey guys, what's going on? I am working on my fiance's 2015 Buick Encore, doing the rear brake pads. Really very easy job. I just want to do a video on how to do it. I'm currently got the caliper off, but I'm gonna put that back on real fast, that way I can show you guys what to do. So step one is going to be block a wheel, put wheel blocks on both sides. I did the other side front wheel. You're going to barely loosen up your back tire, or whatever side you're doing. I'm doing the driver's side or rear left. What you're gonna do is after you get it just loose to where when you lift it up you can get the lug nuts off, you're going to go ahead and lift up that side, that tire, put a jack stand underneath, and after you do that, what you need to do is two things up here or inside. One is make sure your parking brake is not up. What that's going to do is actually engage your parking brake in the rear, which is activated by this mechanism right here. It's a spring-loaded mechanism that would force your caliper piston out, and you don't want that. So you're going to press this button, push it down if it's parking. Mine was already down, so the other thing you can do to make it a little easier is turn your car on. This is why your wheels are blocked also. Not just because you're lifting up the vehicle. Turn your car on, put your car into neutral, turn the car off. So after you get all that done, what you want to do is remove, well, first of all, find your master brake cylinder, which is this guy right here. He's tucked down right there. But find your reservoir, remove your cap, get a rag that you don't really care about, and put it around and underneath the reservoir, because what's going to happen is eventually we'll get to the point where we got to push this caliper piston back in, and there's a very specific way you have to do it. I will show you how to do that, but the main point of the rag is while that piston is going back in, brake fluid could come out of the reservoir. The reason you have the cap off is to allow the brake fluid to come back up to the reservoir. That way it's a little easier to get that caliper piston back in. You don't want that brake fluid getting on any paint or anything like that. That's why there's a rag there too, because it is acidic and it will eat the paint. Okay, so now I'm going to walk back to the left side rear. So very easy. All you're gonna do is get your tire off. It's just these guys right here, these 5 lug nuts. Once you get that off, get the tire off. There's 2 different ways to get this caliper off. It's 2 different ways you can do it, but the way I'm doing it is you are gonna remove these one lower nut here, right here. Lower bolt is a 10 millimeter. The top one is a 1/2, which is this guy, and this just threads in, and the caliper will sit like that. You'll just unthread the 2 bolts, and what I like to do is set that off to the side on a extra jack if you have it, or you can bungee cord it up to like your coil spring, or somewhere, that way these lines, your brake lines, are not getting pinched. But what you're going to do is back that out. So I'm actually going to start with the very specific way to get this piston back, because what you're going to do is increase the thickness this area right here in between here. So you got to get that back in there. My pads are completely worn down, so we got a little bit of ways to go, but I'll show you how to do it. So to do that, there's a very specific tool you need, and O'Reilly's and AutoZone sell these, but it's this guy right here. It is a brake caliper piston tool essentially. And the way it works is you got these little nubs that fit into those two grooves. Now, a traditional caliper, you can just, you know, use vice grips, or not vice grips, I'm sorry, like a C-clamp. Here, I got some over here. You can use a C-clamp like that, or I bought a fancy tool that pushes the caliper piston back in, straight in. But this is not the case for this guy. This one actually threads out. Buick decided to be all fancy and extra and stuff, but this one actually threads outward. So I'm actually gonna show you how to do it. It's very easy. See if I can get my camera. See if that's a good photo for you guys. Yeah, that'll be all right. You're gonna get, oh, family's back. You're gonna get, sorry, family's pulling up. Okay, you are gonna get whatever size nub fits tightly in there. Mine are these two. And you're gonna clockwise, with a little bit of force, pressing onto the caliper, you are gonna twist like you're tightening down a screw or bolt. And what that's gonna do is thread the piston back inward. So let's see if I can't. That's probably not gonna help any. So what we're gonna do is this. And what that's doing is threading my piston, caliper piston, back into place. And we want to get it to where we have enough room in between the piston and these little fingers. And this might take a second, and be careful when you do this, because I don't know if you ever busted your knuckles before, but it doesn't feel good, and this is one of those things that could. So just keep going until you get her to a good point. Just keep going. Something to keep in mind, and I'll grab the camera real fast. Something to keep in mind is this rubber boot. As you're threading that, this rubber boot should not bind up and like rip. If it's ripped or torn, you want to replace the entire caliper, because this rubber boot actually protects the piston itself, and you don't want that, and that actually can cause leaks. And we're just gonna keep going at it until we get enough room. You guys will get the idea when you're doing this. You're just gonna keep threading and keep threading. Eventually, you're not gonna be able to thread this anymore. It should bottom out or stop, kind of like a bolt when you're tightening it up. And while I'm doing this and threading this piston back in, what that could be causing the reservoir is pushing that fluid out, which is why we have that rag there. I'm almost done. Just gotta get my tool back lined up. And like I said, this tool that I got is like a $15 tool that you can get at like AutoZone, O'Reilly's. I believe Napa would have them too, but basically any places like that. And that's just this little guy, and the packaging looks like that. Brake piston tool. There's the part number. I don't know if you guys can see that. All right, so I'm gonna go a little bit further with my tool. I'm almost to the point where I can move on to actually assembling or putting in the brake shoes. I call them brake shoes. They're actually called brake pads. People just call them differently, different names. But I'm almost to the point where I can get this. I think I'm almost there. I'm gonna attempt to say That right there is good. Basically, you can see how the gap increased, and that we want because we have thicker brake pads, brand new brake pads that we're putting on. You can see how thin that is, and that's no good. So at this time, what you also want to notice or inspect are these guys right here. These are supposed to move in and out. These basically are, I call them sliders, but what they do is as you apply the brake, it brings the caliper and these shoes together and clamps down. That's what actually clamps down. If these do not move, you're basically eliminating that, and that could cause irregular brake pad wear, and you don't want that. So that's not good. So you want these to move. These are very easy to replace. You basically, it's a rubber boot that slides over a metal pin, and if you can get those out, it's very easy. Just put some anti-seize on them, nickel anti-seize on them. Okay, so at this point, now's the time to get these brake shoes out. Now, you can use a flathead screwdriver, there's different ways to do it, but I'm gonna put the camera down at a different angle. There we go, I got you guys a decent one. And what I'm gonna do is gently get behind these guys. And now, you guys won't care about these because you're gonna be replacing them. So, you just want to get it out, pry at the top, pry at the bottom, whatever you gotta do, get them out. There's one. There's two. Now be careful on the rotor itself. You don't want to scratch it up or anything like that. And actually, this is a really good time to inspect your rotor. If there's really deep grooves and stuff, or this is really thin, you want to replace it. You don't want to reuse it, because that basically, it's basically worn out. And if there's deep grooves in there, your brake pads will wear, your new ones will wear the grooves in there. You won't get as good as a brake grip as you would a nice flat surface. Now, these are exactly why I'm replacing these. You can see the material, and this is the outer brake pad right here, facing that way. This guy is pretty much gone, so that's getting replaced. This guy, it's all right, but because I'm replacing it, I'm gonna replace it. And so I left these clips in there, but you know, the old clips, you just unclip like that, very easy. Notice the orientation of these, very important. You don't want it like this. You can't really, you know, put them in one, you can only put them in one way. Now, clean out these grooves, any rust, any dirt and stuff like that. And what you want to do is, it's not a bad idea to put a small amount of anti-seize down in this groove right here and there, and also down in here. And what that'll do is make it easy for the next time you gotta do brakes. But I already did that, so I'm just gonna push these down, and it just sits down like that. Now up here is pretty much inverted, you know, of down here. It's pretty much the exact same thing. So I'm gonna step away for just a second and grab my brake pads, and we'll go ahead and install them. So these brake pads I just got from O'Reilly's. It doesn't matter where you get them as long as you get the right ones. There's two different types. If you look at the backs, you see one has the wear bar, and there's no pins like this one. The one with the no pins in the middle is the one you want on the same side as the caliper piston, because for obvious reasons, you want even pressure on these pads. So what you're gonna do is, I'm actually gonna start with excuse me, I'm gonna start with the caliper piston side. It's gonna follow the curvature. I'm just lining it up just so you can see with the rotor, and you're gonna fit them in the groove. And these might take a little finagle and finesse, but they just sit in the groove right there and right, oops, sorry, right there. Excuse me. and you want that curvature to follow the rotor. I'm reusing these rotors because they're still in okay condition. And it's the same thing for these guys. You want these faces, the ones that have the words, you want the brake material, the actual brake pad material touching the rotor or facing the rotor. You don't want it like this or like that. That's not how you want it. This side is facing out. So I'll go ahead. These might take a little bit of finagling, but it's okay. Okay. And you might have to angle the pad, press it on, or get it on, squeeze it on. But this is what you want right here. Those little arm pieces are up into this little metal tab. Same down there. All right. And the same thing on the other side. So what you're gonna do is once you get your caliper piston threaded back into enough space in between these fingers, I call them fingers, and your piston itself, you can lift and get it kind of into place right there. Obviously you'll have more free. I might set the camera down just for a second, see if it'll stabilize. Probably not, because I got my charger on. So what you want to do, and I might have to whack it into place. I'm gonna set the camera down, and then we'll come back right before I add the 2 bolts. So getting her into place. This might take a little finagling, and just it'll go. So I'm getting her close enough. She is getting close enough to where I can reinstall the top one. And again, this might take a little bit of playing around, but it's okay. It's part of the fun, right? We also covered that this top nut up here is a 12 millimeter, or I'm sorry, not 12 millimeter. It's half inch wrench. You just want to hand tighten it, get it snug, and then you get, maybe not. There we go. Get in there, you know, let's get in there. And now we can get the lower bolt started. I apologize that I got the camera down. It's probably not a good angle for you guys. Basically what I'm doing is this. I just maneuvered the brake caliper over the shoes, and then I started these by hand, so these are still loose, the top and bottom. This guy is a 10 millimeter. This nut right here that's connected to this guy is a 1/2 inch wrench. There's another way to actually get this entire assembly off to where you don't have to do it exactly this way. If you want to take this entire brake shoe bracket and caliper assembly as an entire, excuse me, it is these two 15 millimeter, and there's one other on the other side. You'll see it, but that's what this is connected to, is a 15 millimeter bolt. You would remove those, and then it's pretty much the same thing. But I am pretty much ready now to tighten these down. They don't have to be absolutely like wrench as hard as you can. You definitely want them a little snug, but there's really no way to get a torque wrench on there unless you have essentially a crow's foot to get on these guys. But I'm just gonna snug them down as best as I can, and then this is pretty much it as far as getting this side done. But I'll bring you back when I get to that point. Once you get them tightened, snugged up pretty good, like I have mine, I'm just gonna look over everything. You want it pretty good. You want, I'm rotating the rotor right now, and what that's gonna do is basically get the brake pads, a little very, very slight gap between the brake pads and the rotor, and that's exactly how you want it.
I was also going to throw in that on the caliper piston face, the face of it, or the side that actually touches this brake shoe, I put a little anti-seize on there. That way, for disassembly next time, it's not that bad.
So at this point, you know, you look everything over. If you take these 15mm bolts, there's 2 of them. If you take those off, when you go to torque them down, it is 125 foot-pounds. Other than that, we can go ahead and reinstall the tire, and then you can drop this down, you know, get your jack out of there, drop down the this side, and then move on to the other side. And then as always, make sure your brake reservoir is topped off, which I will have to do. That as you thread that caliper piston inward, it will push some fluid out of here. But I didn't get much to come out, so I'll just have to top it off. But that's why you have this rag down to catch any fluid. So at this point, it's pretty much easy. You just slap your tire on, or you put your tire on. You install and torque your lug nuts. I'm gonna go to about 110 foot-pounds each in a star pattern, and then I'm gonna move on to the other side. So, all right, guys, if you like this video or have any questions, please feel to comment, and also please feel to like and subscribe. I plan on doing more videos on Buick Encore here, my Chrysler 300 race car, autocross car, and then also my 1990 Ford Ranger. All right, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, bye.